Before Germany, before the empire, before the black and white banners marched across Europe, there was a land of forests and cold winds, a land where Baltic tribes worshipped ancient spirits, a land destined to forge one of the greatest militarized states in human history. This is the story of Prussia, a kingdom born from struggle, faith, discipline, and iron determination. From humble pagan shores to the heart of European power, the journey begins long before a king ever wore the Prussian crown. Before the first brick of Berlin, before the Hohenzollerns, there were the old Prussians, Baltic tribes living between the Vistula and the Baltic Sea. They were not Germanic. They were related to Lithuanians and Latvians, a people who believed the natural world was sacred. Forest spirits held authority. Ancestors guided families. Sacred groves were holy spaces. Their world was rural, decentralized. Tribal chiefs oversaw small communities. No king, no centralized state. They farmed, hunted, traded amber with Vikings and Slavs. Their identity was deeply spiritual, a worldview in which nature was alive. No one then could have imagined that this land, wild, remote, sparsely populated, would one day shape the destiny of Europe. The 13th century brought a storm. Christian Europe looked east, toward Baltic pagans, and declared a holy crusade. The Teutonic Knights, a German military order forged during the Crusades, marched into Prussia claiming to bring Christianity. But behind faith was ambition. For nearly a century, they waged a relentless war. Villages burned, sacred forests fell, temples were destroyed. The old Prussians resisted, but fragmented tribes could not withstand a disciplined crusader army. By the late 1200s, the Teutonic Order controlled Prussia. Their rule was theocratic, authoritarian, militarized, German-speaking. Castles rose along the Baltic. Königsberg became their stronghold. A new cultural identity began forming, Baltic plus German plus Christian. This was the first foundation of Prussian heritage, a culture forged in conquest and shaped by discipline. But all empires face challengers. In 1410, at the Battle of Grunwald-Tannenberg, the Polish-Lithuanian alliance crushed the Knights. It was one of medieval Europe's greatest battles. The order never truly recovered. Over time, the order became a vassal of Poland. Their power shrank, their economy weakened. Finally, in 1525, Grand Master Albert of Brandenburg-Ansbach stood before the Polish king and dissolved the Teutonic Order's power in Prussia. He converted to Lutheranism and secularized the territory. Thus was born the Duchy of Prussia, and a new identity began. Christianity was no longer Roman Catholic. It was Protestant. This Protestant shift would define Prussian culture for centuries. This moment marks the death of the crusading state and the birth of something more flexible, modern, and secular. The seed of the Kingdom of Prussia had been planted. To the west of Prussia lay Brandenburg, a muddy, rural frontier territory within the Holy Roman Empire. It was ruled by a rising dynasty, the Hohenzollerns. They were skilled in marriage politics, land acquisition, negotiation. This dynasty would one day rule all Prussia. Brandenburg was not wealthy. It had no mountains of gold, no fertile plains like France, no armies like Austria. But it had ambition, and in the 1600s, Europe plunged into chaos. The 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, ravaged Central Europe. Cities burned, population collapsed, armies marched endlessly. Brandenburg, Prussia was devastated. Emerging from this chaos was a man known as Frederick William, the Great Elector. He rebuilt the state with iron purpose. He created a standing army, centralized taxation, efficient administration. He welcomed refugees, especially Protestants fleeing Catholic persecution. They brought skills, commerce, culture. They helped revitalize the land. From these reforms grew the Prussian ethos: discipline, loyalty, service, order. A small, war-torn frontier was becoming a modern state. The Great Elector's reforms built the foundation of Prussian society. Junkers, nobles, served as military officers. Peasants farmed under noble authority. Lutheran morality shaped everyday life. Berlin began as a simple town, but under Hohenzollern leadership, it slowly grew into a center of learning and governance. Education expanded. The idea that citizens should be able to read the Bible would eventually evolve into a proud national education system. The Prussian character emerged: practical, hardworking, loyal, more focused on action than luxury. Culture grew quietly, not in lavish palaces, but in schools, military academies, churches. From this soil came the disciplined society that would one day dominate Europe. The 30 Years' War left Brandenburg, Prussia scarred. Burned villages, famine, disease, population collapse. Foreign armies marched through its fields as though the land were a public road. The people were exhausted and looked for leadership. That leader was Frederick William, the Great Elector. He saw clearly, if Prussia was to survive in a Europe ruled by giants, Austria, France, Sweden, it must become strong. And strength meant unity plus discipline. Frederick William centralized authority. He dismantled the old system where nobles controlled everything and built a new one in which the state, not feudal lords, held the power. He built a permanent army, a unified tax system, efficient civil service, central administration. The most powerful nobles, the Junkers, agreed to support the elector in exchange for controlling peasants on their estates. This alliance between monarchy plus nobility plus army became the core pillar of Prussian heritage for the next 200 years. In Prussia, soldiers were not just warriors. They were symbols of order. Service was honorable. Duty was sacred. The uniform became a cultural identity. This was the beginning of Prussia's legendary militarism. The Great Elector was a staunch Lutheran, but he also believed that diversity could strengthen his lands. When France expelled its Protestants, the Huguenots, in 1685, Frederick William invited them into Brandenburg, Prussia. Tens of thousands came. They brought craftsmanship, trade networks, industry, literacy, academic sophistication. They revitalized town life, especially in Berlin, Potsdam, and Königsberg. Because of them, Prussia became more urban, skilled, and economically awake. This was a different heritage than most of Europe. While others expelled religious minorities, Prussia absorbed them. Tolerance, prosperity, cultural strength. A key theme in Prussian character was born: pragmatism over ideology. By the late 1600s, Prussia was still small, but it was no longer helpless. A new national personality emerged. Frugal, industrious, serious, loyal people valued stability over freedom, order over luxury, duty over individualism. A common saying circulated: to be Prussian is not to speak German, but to obey. It wasn't meant as tyranny, but as recognition that survival needed unity. Even art reflected this. Music and architecture were modest. No Versailles, but clean, rational buildings. The spirit of Prussia was being forged, not in gold halls, but in discipline and simplicity. This is where the story rises from duchy to crown. In 1701, Elector Frederick III crowned himself Frederick I, King in Prussia. Note, he was not King of Prussia because parts of Prussia were still legally under Polish influence. The title was political compromise. Frederick I was not a soldier like his father or son. He loved art, splendor, royal ceremony. He built palaces, welcomed scholars, and tried to make Prussia look like a European kingdom worth respecting. To many Prussians, he seemed lavish, even wasteful, but his reign mattered. He made Prussia a recognized kingdom in European politics. He secured prestige. He opened the door to future greatness. The Prussian story was no longer local. It now stood on the European stage. Then came a dramatic shift. Frederick I's son, Frederick William I, 1713 to 1740, was the opposite. He despised luxury. He wore a simple uniform. He abolished unnecessary court rituals. He dismissed musicians and dancers. He sold jewels, reduced palace expenses, and made Prussia a military machine. He said, "I want my people to fear me, so that God will not have to." His goal was not war, but readiness. He doubled the army, not for conquest, but for deterrence. Under him, the army became the state. Nobles served as officers. Peasants served as soldiers. It was efficient, loyal, and disciplined. He created the Cadet Corps, a military academy to train noble boys from childhood. For the first time, Prussia had a professional officer class rooted in family tradition. Culture. He valued simplicity, hard work, duty. He personally drilled troops. He visited villages, inspected farms, and demanded discipline at every level. He believed national character was built from childhood. Children were raised with strictness and obedience. This formed a cultural memory still associated with Prussia today. Work, obey, and serve, and the state will protect you. Under him, Prussia's army became one of the finest in Europe, even though the kingdom itself was small and poor. This paradox impressed Europe. How could such a tiny state have such a formidable army? Because its strength was cultural, not just material. In Prussia, the army was more than a force of war. It was identity. Uniforms were symbols of pride. Marching was a ritual. Obedience was a virtue. A farmer in uniform was equal to a noble on the battlefield. This created unity. It erased social boundaries, at least in service. Education followed military principles, memorization structure, obedience, punctuality. The school bell sounded like a drill command. This heritage would spread across Europe in later centuries. Even today, many modern school and military systems carry Prussian influence. Yet the man destined to transform Prussia into a European superpower was nothing like his father. A dreamer, a musician, a philosopher, a young prince who played the flute and read French poetry. He was beaten for it. He tried to escape. His best friend was executed in front of him. He learned the cost of freedom. He learned the weight of duty. When he inherited the throne in 1740, Europe expected weakness. What they got was a genius who would redefine Prussia, rewrite European borders, and earn a name that still echoes today, Frederick the Great.
A new dawn rises, and with it, a kingdom is born. We are the great power.
Frederick II was never meant to be a traditional Prussian ruler. As a boy, he preferred poetry to drills, played the flute, instead of marching, read French philosophy rather than theology. He wanted beauty, art, music, not the rigid harshness of his father, Frederick William I. The clash was violent. The father saw his son as weak. Frederick saw his father as a tyrant. He attempted to flee Prussia as a young man. He was caught. His closest friend was executed in front of him. Frederick was imprisoned. He learned obedience, cold realism, the price of defiance. The poet died. The philosopher survived. But now he had steel beneath his intellect. He emerged half artist, half strategist, a mind sharpened by both beauty and brutality. In 1740, his father died. Frederick II became king of Prussia. He ascended prepared, but underestimated. Rivals thought him soft. Austria, ruled by young Maria Theresa, seemed vulnerable. Prussia had one advantage, a well-trained army built by his father. Frederick saw an opportunity. The province of Silesia, rich, industrial, densely populated, belonged to Austria. If Prussia could seize it, the kingdom would leap from secondary status to major power. Only weeks after becoming king, Frederick launched a sudden invasion. Europe was stunned. The artist king was now a conqueror. The First Silesian War began. The Prussian army proved disciplined, fast, deadly. Their infantry fired with unmatched precision. Their cavalry was swift as lightning. Frederick won major victories, including Battle of Mollwitz in 1741. Austria, forced to negotiate, ceded most of Silesia to Prussia. This transformed the kingdom overnight. A poor, marginal land became a wealthy industrial state. Europe took notice. Prussia was no longer a joke. It was a rising star. Frederick had gambled everything and won. But Austria would not forget. The Second Silesian War, 1744 to 1745, confirmed Prussia's hold. 2 wars, 2 victories. Europe understood. Prussia was now a great power. This is the moment the Prussian eagle truly opened its wings. But the greatest test was yet to come. Austria, furious, formed a grand coalition. Austria, France, Russia, Sweden, Saxony against Prussia and Britain. Frederick was surrounded, outnumbered, outmatched. It was David versus Goliath, but multiplied by 5. This was the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763. Some call it the First World War because it spanned Europe, India, North America. Prussia became the central battlefield. Frederick led from the front. Battle of Rossbach, 1757. Crushes French and Saxons. Battle of Leuthen, 1757. Defeats Austrians with brilliant maneuver. These victories made him legendary. His tactics are still studied today. But the war dragged on. Prussia seemed destined to fall. Berlin was occupied. The army was exhausted. Frederick contemplated suicide. Then came the miracle. In 1762, Russia's Empress Elizabeth died. Her successor, Peter III, admired Frederick and withdrew from the war. This miracle of the House of Brandenburg saved Prussia. Without Russia, the anti-Prussian coalition collapsed. The war ended with Prussia retaining Silesia. The impossible had happened. A small kingdom had survived a war against nearly all of Europe. Prussia emerged not just intact, but respected. Europe now understood. Prussia was a great power. Frederick was not only a warrior, he was an Enlightenment thinker. After the war, he turned inward. To rebuild and reform, he believed a king was the first servant of the state. He pursued religious tolerance, legal reform, agricultural development, education, immigration policy to rebuild population. He drained marshes, built canals, invited settlers. He modernized justice, banned torture, simplified laws. He welcomed Jews, Catholics, Protestants, so long as they contributed to society. He corresponded with Voltaire, one of Europe's greatest philosophers. Voltaire once wrote, "He is not a king like the others. He thinks." He writes, "He creates under Frederick." Prussia became a magnet for philosophers, artists, scientists, engineers. Berlin and Potsdam became centers of culture. The court spoke French, music flourished. He composed flute sonatas himself. Frederick's palace in Sanssouci was a masterpiece of Enlightenment elegance. Here he gathered musicians, scholars, free thinkers. He built libraries and sponsored the arts. He saw culture not as decoration, but as power. A civilized kingdom commands respect. Prussian heritage expanded, not only discipline, but intellect. The arts became inseparable from the state. Even while maintaining a powerful army, Frederick proved that Prussia could be a cultural lighthouse. Frederick was raised Lutheran but personally leaned toward deism. He believed religion should guide morals, truth should guide policy. He allowed Catholics to worship Jews to settle Protestants to flourish, his famous line, "In my kingdom, everyone can go to heaven in his own fashion." This tolerance was unusual in Europe. Prussian heritage became deeply tied to religious diversity, academic freedom, rational governance, a rare combination, militarism plus enlightenment. It was the dual soul of Prussia. Frederick encouraged farming, introduced new crops like potatoes, built roads, encouraged industry, reformed taxation. Population grew, cities prospered, trade expanded. The state became efficient, organized, productive. The army remained central, but society was more than soldiers. Prussia was becoming a fully modern state. When Frederick died in 1786, Prussia was transformed. It had territory, wealth, population, education, culture, fearsome army. What began as a poor, scattered land had become one of Europe's great powers. Above all, Frederick left a cultural legacy. 1. Duty and discipline. 2. Education and enlightenment. 3. Tolerance and rationalism. 4. Military excellence. 5. Identity larger than geography. He fused art with army, philosophy with power, culture with command. Voltaire wrote, "He fought like Caesar and thought like Marcus Aurelius." This was the golden age of Prussia, but greatness demanded a price, and the world was changing. New storms gathered, new empires rose. The next century would test whether Prussia's iron will could survive Europe's upheavals, and it would soon meet the greatest conqueror since Rome. For 3 centuries, the Kingdom of Prussia rose from a humble frontier land to a force that reshaped Europe. Through war and peace, through kings, soldiers, scholars, and dreamers, Prussia carved its name into the story of civilization. But this is only the beginning. The story of Prussia does not end with Frederick the Great or the rise of national identity. For ahead lies storms darker than any before. A crushing defeat beneath Napoleon's banners, a nation humiliated, only to be reborn stronger than ever. A new age is dawning of iron and steam, of revolution and unification, of empires rising and falling. The world is changing, and Prussia will not stand still. To be continued in part 2. If you've enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to subscribe, because the next chapter of Prussia's story is coming soon. Like this video to help more people discover our shared heritage, and share it with those who love history, so together we keep these stories alive. Until next time, thank you for watching.